Hello everyone, today is 29th of March, now it's 10 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for a day in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Later on today in the afternoon, I will upload a new episode of headlines on both platforms, both channels on YouTube and Rumble. And the late evening, about 9 o'clock, I will start live stream on my Rumble channel. So I hope you will find time to join the conversation. It's always good fun. It's not just about latest news that I'm sharing with the audience, but also it's informal talk among us, among members of our community in real time, exchange of opinions. As I said, always good fun. So hopefully you will manage to join the live stream and the conversation. I will inform you about live stream 30 minutes earlier, maybe 15 minutes earlier on my Telegram channel and through the page of our community on YouTube. Okay, that's been said, let's talk about news now. And first of all, short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. According to reports from Russian media and Russian military channels, there was no crucial changes on any of the sectors of the front line, although all military channels are reporting about significant increase of pressure on Ukrainian units in Avdiivka direction. On the line of Semyonovka-Berdichi, and according to several channels, it's just Ukrainian units in these areas are basically on the brink of collapse. And if true, then most likely in next 2-3 days, probably Russian forces will establish control over both these settlements. Also, by the way, some media outlets are reporting that Kyiv regime lately conducting some changes in its tactics and are sending reinforcements towards front line without military equipment, without support of tanks, armored personal carriers or infantry fighting vehicles. And this was observed not just on Zaporozhye or Kupiansk or other sectors, but also in Avdiivka sector, which is most active sector right now. Although, for example, yesterday, isn't it, yesterday or day before, reports came in that Russian side managed to destroy another Abrams tank. So hard to know what is going on in reality on that sector, but it is quite possible that Kyiv regime is experiencing now shortage, not just when it comes to manpower, but also of military equipment, and therefore it is possible that many units, not all of them, but many units are deployed to the line of contact without support of armored vehicles. I would not be surprised at all if that's exactly the case. And of course, dear friends, these days everybody is talking about upcoming Russian Kharkiv offensive. Russian side very active in Kharkiv direction, obviously, but because I did not see full-scale collapse of Ukrainian defense lines on Kharkiv direction, I am a little skeptical that in upcoming days or even weeks we will see large-scale Russian offensive operation on Kharkiv direction. But maybe I'm mistaken, I don't know. But me personally, I expect decisive Russian actions to take place when Ukrainian defense lines are collapsing totally and when Ukrainian armed forces are no longer battle-capable entity because of the collapse. Right now, I don't think Ukrainian armed forces are that depleted. They still are capable force, and therefore Russian side most likely will continue with current strategy of active defense and will try to demilitarize as many Ukrainian units as possible by increasing pressure on more or less same unchanged line of contact. And if there are any changes, just a minor or maximum sector level, like it happened in Avdiivka, for example, recently. And when due to lack of manpower, due to psychological pressure, due to lack of military equipment, Ukrainian armed forces will start to collapse. I believe that's the time when we should expect large-scale Russian offensive operations, and not just in Kharkiv direction, but also in Chernigov, Sumy, in Kherson, Zaporozhye, and even Odessa directions. Not simultaneously, not necessarily simultaneously, but after Ukrainian armed forces will collapse, Russian side will definitely make some changes in its strategy, and from active defense we will see transfer to large-scale offensive operations, but not right now. Still at least a month or two have to pass to make sure that well, Ukrainian armed forces really are losing their battle capabilities and are on the brink of collapse or collapsing. And this is important, of course, because, for example, when we are talking about Kharkiv direction, or Kharkiv itself, this is a huge city, by the way, huge city, and we'll see what is happening on the line of contacts to the two settlements. They are obliterated, basically. And very same will happen with Kharkiv if Russian forces will conduct offensive in Kharkiv direction right now. And the Russian side wants to avoid that. And that's why current strategy is used of active defense to deplete battle capabilities of Ukrainian armed forces. And when these forces are collapsed, conduct large-scale decisive actions so that casualty numbers will be as low as possible and destruction on the ground to the infrastructure will be as minimal as possible. But still, almost every military channel is reporting about upcoming Kharkiv offensive of Russian armed forces, and I find it difficult to believe that in next day or two or in next week or two we will see Kharkiv offensive. I don't think so. But anyway, let's that's it when it comes to a short summary. Of course, if you are interested in more detailed analysis of this local scale skirmishes, artillery duels, reckoning force operations, and so on, I recommend military channels for that. They are providing great volume of information on daily basis on that local changes on line of contact. I will continue with some additional news. RIA Novosti is reporting that over the Belgorod region, Russian air defense systems shut down 15 missiles from Ukrainian MLRS systems, multi-launch rocket systems. No reports about casualties on the ground for this moment. And once again, Kyiv regime used Czech-made RM-70 Vampire multi-launch rocket system. RIA Novosti is also reporting that first time Russian media obtained footage of Storm Shadow missile, how this missile is built, and I shared on my Telegram, by the way. This is a Storm Shadow missile, how it looks from outside, from inside. Russian experts will of course work on this missile and will share information with air defense systems, with all the units that need that information to more effectively fight this type of cruise missiles of the NATO states. Of course, Storm Shadow and French Scalp, British Storm Shadow and French Scalp, they are like twin brothers. They are similar missiles, it's just names are different. In France it's Scalp, in UK it's Storm Shadow. Long range cruise missiles, they can fly up to 250, 260, some say 300 kilometers, which is significant, of course. And the Kyiv regime, unfortunately, quite often uses these weapons to conduct strikes deep inside Russian territory. When I see this footage, I was wondering how Russian side managed to land this cruise missile. Maybe they jam it, and I don't know. It did not look like it crashed because it's almost intact. So very interesting footage, very interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if one day we will learn that some corrupt Ukrainian militaries sold that cruise missile to Russian side. It is possible, man. Anything is possible when we are talking about Kyiv regime. Anyway, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting, and of course you already know that Russian armed forces in Berdichi area, which is Avdiivka sector, destroyed yet another Abrams tank, fifth one, if I'm if I remember correctly. Once again, by the way, Russian media still continues to pay attention on destruction of Abrams tanks, but at some point, probably this attention will go down, because well, now everyone understands that Abrams tanks are burning very same way that any other tank does. Nowadays you rarely see reports about destruction of Leopard 2s on the line of contact, because everyone gets used to destroyed Leopard 2s. Abrams is relatively new stuff on the zero line, and therefore it makes some waves in headlines in Russia whenever Abrams is destroyed. But this will continue no longer. I mean, what a big deal, really. I mean, okay, 5 Abrams destroyed. In 2-3 weeks times, another 10 will be destroyed. And what? I mean, this is Western propaganda, by the way, about these wonder weapons, Abrams, Challenger 2, Leopard 2, and the rest of it. In reality, Russian side can deal with any weapon systems that NATO can introduce to the battlefield. It was so obvious from very beginning. Anyway, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that over the Sevastopol, Russian plane experienced malfunction and fell down yesterday. Unfortunate situation. Of course, pilot managed to eject. I saw footage of this plane. Airframe of that plane looked like Su-27 for me. Maybe it was Su-34, which is somewhat similar, which is basically based on a modernized version of Su-27, although Su-34 is, of course, a frontline bomber or tactical bomber. And rumors are circulating on internet that according to which plane experienced some malfunction and fell down, and according to some other reports, it was a friendly fire. Unfortunately, Russian air defense systems mistook this plane for maybe a Ukrainian missile and shut down it. Defense ministry is not commenting on it, so we cannot know for sure. But well, good thing is that pilot managed to eject. So in this overall negative news, there is something positive, that pilot was not killed during this incident. RIA Novosti is reporting, and because it was a pilot, in many reports I see pilot, not pilots. Because it's pilot, most likely it was Su-27, maybe Su-35, they look similar. Because Su-30, for example, or Su-34, they have 2 pilots. So that's why I think it was most likely Su-27. Maybe some channels reported exactly what plane crashed, but on main channels I did not see that precise information. Anyway, let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that, well, Russian armed forces, and I mentioned this in yesterday's headlines, that Russian armed forces in Kharkiv region destroyed point of concentration of Ukrainian armed forces. Also, these saboteurs, among them saboteurs that were trying to cross Russian border in Belgorod and Kursk direction, and also mercenaries and foreign pilots, and all of them, or majority of them, were neutralized as a result of Russian strike. And what is interesting in this information, that pilots were presented, by the way, on the spot, Western pilots, and because it happened in Kharkiv region, when I was reading this information, I was thinking to myself, what Western pilots were training Ukrainians for in Kharkiv region? Maybe to operate with some drones, because I don't think Kiev regime operates some planes from Kharkiv region. Strange, but that's what was reported by RIA Novosti based on Russian partisans in Kharkiv region. Also, by the way, Vzglyad newspaper is reporting that according to article in Financial Times, Kiev regime is actively trying to copy Russian defense lines and build its own defense lines on Sumy, Chernigov, Kharkiv direction, in every direction basically. Although of course defense lines are working, and Russian side proved this during this so-called spring-summer offensive of last year of Kiev regime, when excuse me, Russian armed forces destroyed almost 70,000 Ukrainian military personnel, while Kiev regime basically managed nothing, achieved nothing with that counteroffensive, just to establish control over the Rabotina settlement and few small villages on Remevsk salient, and that's it. And they were hoping that they're gonna reach Crimea, by the way. Can you imagine level of delusion among Western supporters of the Kiev regime and the Kiev regime itself? But defense lines definitely working. Russian side proved this. Point is, although, that to have a proper defense lines, effective defense lines, you need air support. You need air support, air superiority. Does Kiev regime has an air superiority, or even chances to gain air superiority ever? No, definitely not. And therefore, I doubt that these defense lines that Kiev regime is trying to build now will really help them much. They will not, because it's a stationary defense lines, and for Russian FAB 500, FAB 1500 or FAB 3000, these stationary defense lines are ideal targets. So it is what it is. Kiev regime may try to repeat Russian success when it comes to defense lines, but yet again, without air superiority, I don't think these defense lines of Kiev regime will work at all. And dear friends, before I continue, let me notice, if I may, that this small media project of mine is completely subscriber funded. Depends on you, on your support, and I would be immensely grateful if you will consider to support my work with small donations through PayPal, Boosty. This is Boosty, by the way. After I was cancelled on Buy Me Coffee, I'm using Boosty, although seems like members of our community don't really like this platform, or maybe they find it difficult to operate with. I don't know. So I have PayPal at least world known. Boosty is most popular platform in Russia among creators here. And of course, by the way, you can subscribe to my Patreon page on which I have some extra content on regular basis for a community. All the links are under this video in description box or in the pinned comment. After I lost Buy Me Coffee, I'm not gonna lie, financially this project become in very hot waters, let's say this way, or shallow waters, how that say goes. And well, I would be grateful if you will support this project, if you will continue to support this project. As I said, all the links under this video in description box or in the pinned comment. And on my behalf, by the way, I will definitely try my best to make more and more informative and interesting content on all the platforms, by the way, all the channels on YouTube, Rumble, and of course on my Patreon. Okay, let's continue. RT is reporting that Putin, President of Russian Federation, Putin issues F-16 warning to Kiev's sponsors. Russia will destroy US-made F-16 fighter jets that eventually make it to Ukraine, just as it has other Western equipment, President Vladimir Putin said on Wednesday. If they deliver F-16s, I think you know better than others that this will not change the situation on the battlefield, the president said, and will destroy these planes just as we have destroyed tanks, armored vehicles and their other equipment, including multiple launch rocket systems. The comment came during Putin's visit to Tarzhok Air Base in Tver region, home of the 344th training center for Russian combat pilots, including personnel being trained to take part in the Ukrainian conflict. F-16s flown by Ukrainian pilots but based in third countries will nevertheless be legitimate target for Russia, Putin added. Of course, if they are used from airfields of third countries, they become a legitimate target for us, wherever they are located, he said. And this is the main part here in this statement, that Russian president openly and directly says that if F-16s or whatever other planes will operate from outside of Ukraine, airfields, for example, from outside of Ukraine, those airfields will become legitimate target for Russia. This is a very serious warning, and I hope government of Romania, government of Poland, and other countries that can be potentially used by NATO would listen. I hope they will listen and not escalate any further with Russia by providing airfields for Kyiv regime. Anyway, let's continue. RT is reporting that investigators established a link between Moscow's Crocus City Hall terrorist attack that happened recently, suspects of that attack, and Ukrainian nationalists. So some additional news is becoming available. The suspects in the last week's Moscow terrorist attack were linked to Ukrainian nationalists, the Russian Investigative Committee stated on Thursday, citing preliminary findings. The perpetrators had received significant sums of money from Ukraine. The law enforcement agency said investigators have obtained substantiated evidence that the suspected assistants received funding from Ukraine in the form of cryptocurrency, which was then used to prepare the terrorist attack, the statement reads. So we are getting more and more information about this terrorist attack, and well, investigative committee is quite clear that preliminary data already shows a direct link between this terrorist attack and Ukraine. So let's see what other additional information will be shared with public by investigative committee. But as I said, vast majority here in Russia has no doubts that Kyiv regime was involved in this terrorist attack. And by the way, also TASS news agency reported about article in New York Times, according to which United States did not really share with Russia any detailed information about this terrorist attack on Crocus City Hall, although they knew they did had some information, and they refused to share, to warn Russia and to share this detailed information because they did not want to disclose their sources. The question is, the sources where? Where? In Kyiv regime? Most likely. And this is really, really unfortunate, really unfortunate. Russia may maintain some information about possible terrorist attacks in Europe or in US. Russia also has its intelligence network, isn't it? And would it be right if Russia will not share information with the US, for example, to prevent terrorist attack? Of course, it would not be right decision. And then why US did not share information with Russian side? Very unfortunate, very unfortunate. I can understand that countries are in difficult relationships right now, but still there are certain areas where cooperations should continue. And of course, to prevent terrorist attacks, that's exactly the sphere, one of the spheres where sides should always cooperate. But unfortunately, these extremist and the neo-Nazi criminal regime in Washington, by the way, neo-Nazi supporter regime in Washington, clearly thinks otherwise. These mass murderers and terrorists that Biden and his administration are. That's what they really are, by the way, mass murderers and terrorists. Anyway, RT is reporting, and this is, by the way, not me saying, this is New York Times saying. So if US intelligence had information about a terrorist attack in which 143 civilians died, and they didn't share information with the Russian side to prevent this attack, then what US government and US secret services are then? They participate in this terrorist attack by not preventing it, isn't it? Indirectly maybe, but they still participate this terrorist attack to happen. And they are terrorists. And of course they are, by the way. CIA is a bunch of mass murderers and terrorists. And always was that way. That criminal structure. And should be designated as a terrorist organization, man. And all CIA assets, everywhere in this world should be hunted down. That's what should be done by all major secret services in this world. Those fucking terrorists, man. Anyway, let's continue. RT is reporting that, well, according to Erdogan's aid, foreign state obviously supported Moscow terror attack. Acts of terrorism such as Crocus City Hall massacre tend to have state sponsors. Ömer Gelik, a spokesman for Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Erdogan's Justice and Development Party, said on Thursday. Well, if you remember a few days ago, I shared with you information that was circulating on internet that Russian side provide Turkey, after interrogating these detained terrorists, Russian side provide information to Turkish side about training ground for terrorists in Istanbul area. And then some special operation was conducted by Turkish special security services, according to some rumors, by the way, because neither side is officially confirming this information. But there were some videos on internet also of this Turkish special operation. Dozens of terrorists were detained on that base, and I said straight away when I see that information that I would not be surprised if Turkish side, after interrogating those terrorists, will share with public information that these terrorists had some links with Ukraine. And by the way, this aide of Erdogan, or spokesperson of ruling party in Turkey, did not name the country yet. But, I mean, clearly he is not talking about any other country but Ukraine. It's just obvious. Main suspect is Kyiv regime, of course, and at least we have indirect confirmation of that from spokesperson of Turkish ruling party. And he didn't say this on his own. I mean, he, of course, clarified this topic with leadership of Turkey, with the security services, of course, because you're not going to make this kind of statement without consultations, isn't it? So, more and more indicators, by the way, more and more indicators that Kyiv regime was directly involved in this terrorist attack. RT is reporting that new NATO member admits sovereignty issue with the US pact. A new military cooperation agreement with Washington limits Helsinki's sovereignty, the Finnish foreign ministry said on Thursday, advising that its ratification will therefore require two-thirds majority in the parliament. Well, of course, two-thirds in the parliament will vote for this whatever agreement Finland is planning to sign with NATO. And of course, Finland already lost sovereignty. Just take a look at the leadership of Finland, by the way. Those people are assets of CIA, terrorists. They are assets of terrorist organization that CIA is. And therefore, about what sovereignty we may talk about in regards to Finland. They used to be sovereign state in era of neutralization of Finland, but that time is long gone now. and Finland will be just another client state for US and UK. That's it. They will receive orders what to do, when and how from their masters in Washington and London. If they are happy with that, it's their country, their decision. Okay, I mean, what can we do about it? Nothing. RT is reporting that Polish Defense Ministry announced on Wednesday that it had recalled the commander of the Six Nation Eurocorps military force, Lieutenant General Yaroslav Gromadzinski, and opened the investigation into his personal security clearance. In a statement on its website, the ministry said that intelligence officers had opened the probe with had turned up new information about the general. As a result, a decision was made to dismiss this General Gromadzinski from his position as a commander of the Eurocorps and order his immediate return to Poland. The statement reads, and this individual, by the way, was involved in training of Ukrainian forces. Few days ago there was a report that Polish general was killed, died in strange circumstances. Many military channels, many military experts arguing that that Polish general died in Ukraine, in Chisov Yar, during one of the Russian strikes on command and control center in that town, not far away from Bakhmut. And now this story, by the way. Now this story, Polish intelligence officers had some questions with this general. I wonder why. What the hell is going on there? But in any case, Polish army is experiencing quite difficult times, I will say, especially leadership, because very strange stories are coming out from Poland and Polish defense ministry nowadays. RT is reporting that, well, Putin also made statements about these claims of the Western ruling elites that Russia is planning to attack NATO. And let me share with you what Putin says about it. Moscow is not seeking confrontation with America's satellites in Europe, in Eastern Europe. Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Wednesday, multiple Western officials have tried to drum up support for additional aid to Ukraine by claiming that Moscow will not stop if Kyiv is defeated on the battlefield. The Putin addressed their claims during the visit to Torzhok Air Base in Tver region. This is just a nonsense, the Russian president said, noting that this parity in Russian defense spending and the budgets of NATO militaries, the claims that we are going to attack Europe after Ukraine, it's utter nonsense and intermediation of their own population just to beat their money out of them. US satellites in Eastern Europe have no reason to be afraid, Putin added. Talk of a potential Russian attack on Poland, the Czech Republic or the Baltic states is just propaganda by governments that seek to scare their citizens, to extract additional expenses from people, to make them bear this burden on their shoulders. Absolutely correct, by the way. I guess all of us can agree with Putin. Russia never claimed that it has any intention to attack NATO. It's exactly the opposite. Russia is always warning NATO that not to escalate further because it's dangerous. It's NATO that is escalating, not Russia, for God's sake. Everyone knows that, but because the Western ruling class don't want any challenges internally, they don't want societies to ask why you are spending these tens and hundreds of billions on Kyiv regime, most corrupt regime in world, while we have some issues here in our countries. So not to be challenged with the questions, they are scaring their population as much as they can in the West. And therefore, unfortunately, vast majority is obtaining this position of observers and saying nothing, isn't it? Yes, well-informed part of societies in the West, they are trying to wake up rest of their societies to ask questions, to challenge these crazy policies of the government, but they cannot compete with the immense resources of Western propaganda outlets. How can they? So it is what it is, man. I mean, and I said from very beginning that this scaremongering tactic was exactly what Putin says: attempt to scare people as much as possible, and then use their money, use taxpayers' money in any ways they like. That's it. And TASS news agency is reporting, by the way, that Western companies that left Russia since the beginning of special military operation lost approximately 107 billion US dollars. According to Reuters, quite interesting news. I wouldn't be surprised if a real number even higher than this, maybe in 200 or 300 billion, because Russia is, of course, has immense value for any businesses worldwide, and that's why many companies formally are saying that they left Russia, but are creating brands, new brands, by the way, and trying to maintain their position on the markets under these new brands. There's so many examples of that, but some companies really left, and they had quite significant losses, really. I mean, 107 billion is no joke. It's a big amount of money. And eventually it's not about losing money, but if you are losing market like Russian, then you are basically forced to decrease production, and if you are decreasing production, you may lay off workers. So it's a chain, by the way. It's a chain. Okay, that's been said. I will end this update now, and well, hopefully you will find this video interesting, informative, useful, and if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything. More likes and comments will help to deal with the algorithms on both platforms, on Rumble and YouTube, and allow me to reach wider audience. And for very same reason, if you can, please share links to my videos on my channels with your friends on any of the platforms that you are actively using. And finally, as I said a few minutes ago, if you find this channel interesting, informative, useful, and one that deserves to exist, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal, Boosty, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You can see all the links under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a great day and take care.